Good morning and half a day. The Committee on General Government Operations and Appropriation Housing is now called to order. For the record, today is Wednesday, May 4th. The time now is 9:01. Notice for this budget hearing were disseminated via email to all senators and main media broadcasting outlets. First public notice was issued on April 4th, followed by April 28th. The committee will now hear Bill 276-36 COR, Committee on Rules, by the request of the I Maga'hågan Guåhan, the Governor of Guam, in accordance with the Organic Act of Guam, an act making appropriation for the operation of the executive branch of the Government of Guam for fiscal year ending September 30th, 2023, making other appropriations and establishing miscellaneous administrative provisions relative to the Guam Fire Department. None of my colleagues are here yet, and I'm not going to wait. We're going to move along for the fire department. Those testifying on Bill 276-36 COR relative to the Guam Fire Department are invited to the panel, and we'll begin with the Chief, Daniel Stone, and then I'll allow you to introduce them after I'm done with all the rules of engagement, all right? Written testimony shall be submitted to the committee. Please provide my legislative staff with written testimony for photocopying. Testimonies may be read, and lengthy testimony should be summarized to about 5 minutes. But Chief, you have all morning. Okay?
Thank you, sir.
Those testifying will be allowed to present oral testimony. Once you're done, please remain in the room for questions or for additional testimony that may be desired by the members of the committee. Questions and testimony shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda. Personal inference as to the character or motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. Any violation of the general rules of conduct will result in removal from the budget hearing. If any of you feel that there's personal inference by any of the members, please advise me. I may not recognize it, but if you do, just raise your hand and tell me and we'll stop. I'm not going to allow it to continue. Proper form and decorum shall be practiced by all present in the public hearing room for these proceedings. Individuals who fail to maintain proper form and decorum may be restricted from providing oral testimony and will be escorted from the room. When you speak, please make sure that the microphone is on and that you speak into the microphone. Other questions may be submitted to the committee for submission to the agency or department for a response. Please state your name and title for the record. At this time, I ask the Sergeant at Arms to please ask the panel to please rise, and you'll be sworn in for your testimony.
Please raise your right hand. Under penalty of perjury, do you all affirm that any and all information you provide today, whether it be verbally, electronically, and in writing, be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do, yes.
Mr. Chair, under oath, you may proceed.
Thank you, Sergeant at Arms. Chief Stone, I'd ask that you introduce the panel that's with you, and then you may begin with your slides, sir.
Thank you very much, Senator. I appreciate this opportunity. My name is Daniel Stone. I am the Fire Chief for the Guam Fire Department. To my left, I have Assistant Chief Darren Burrier. He's my Chief of Operations. To my immediate right, I have Assistant Chief Mike Unkanko. He is my admin support as well as my accounting chief. And to his right is my Assistant Chief Joey Manabusan, who is my fire marshal / prevention / training / EMS. He wears quite a few hats. So with that, sir, with your permission, I'd like to proceed. Buenas and half a day, Senator San Agustin and members of the Committee on General Government Operations, Appropriations, and Housing. Thank you for the opportunity to present the Guam Fire Department's fiscal year 2023 proposed budget. Before presenting to you GFD's FY23 budget request, I would like to provide you with a backdrop of my testimony through an overview of focus points, direction, challenges, highlights, and accomplishments that will bring you to an understanding of the professional services that the Guam Fire Department, its administrative and support staff, and our emergency medical dispatchers provide to our island community. My guidance continues to remain that we meet our mission mandates, ensure that our staff is led, trained, equipped, and paid, as well as increasing our efficiency and capabilities while decreasing expenditures, and finally, to seek revenue enhancement through cost recovery and eligible grants. You see our mission statement, sir? The Guam Fire Department is mandated to provide protection of life and property through fire protection, fire prevention, fire suppression, and connected therewith, requiring a comprehensive administration of an emergency medical services program to include a wildland firefighting capability for the territory of Guam. The Guam Fire Department provides for and administers an extensive program of fire prevention inspections, public fire safety education and training, international fire code enforcement, fire investigations, and review of plans for new and existing building construction. Additionally, GFD operates and manages the enhanced emergency 911 communication systems and a wide land and open sea search and rescue program. With the Homeland Security initiatives, the Guam Fire Department continues to provide a comprehensive hazardous materials response team, an advanced life support program, and a rapid interventions team. We accomplish our missions by promoting safety and maintaining a well-equipped, highly trained, and motivated force of professional firefighters, EMTs, rescue personnel, and emergency medical dispatchers, and promoting fire prevention and public safety education programs. Our goals and objectives: maintain timely, effective, and quality medical responses to all calls for assistance to the island community, which will be accomplished by maintaining the mandate required of all firefighters to be emergency medical technicians. We will continue to develop our training program so that all firefighters acquire National Registered Emergency Medical Technician and Fire Service Pro Board certification. We are also in development of a comprehensive professional development training curriculum that will provide the most current and updated fire service leadership and management training to be attended by our fire officers and our chief officers. Ensuring the successful completion of GFD's first paramedic program. Growing the current medical dispatcher APCO certification requirements by adding the emergency medical responder certification for our 911 personnel. Continue our public safety education and life safety programs aimed at the youth within our communities to bring awareness and education that could potentially assist our youth in recognizing the need to call for medical or fire services. Grow the self-inspection program for qualified small businesses in the community to meet the demands of fire code inspections. Continue our smoke detector, public safety education and life safety programs, and implement a confident testing program for fire protection systems. Continue discussing with our first response partners to hold multi-agency response exercise with both local and federal agencies to enhance our relationships, as well as enhance our overall ability to respond to any crisis. Continue to train and equip our emergency hazardous materials response team and work closely with the Guam Environmental Protection Agency and the Office of Homeland Security, Office of Civil Defense to equip against any types of hazardous situations which may present or pose a threat to our island and its community. Continue the procurement and purchase of much-needed emergency response vehicles and equipment to replace our aging fleet. Acquire a maintenance facility for the GFD fleet maintenance and repair sections. Excuse me. Replace our legacy E911 system with the next generation 911 system. We are very close to finalizing this acquisition that will put the most modern technology and equipment in the hands of our professional emergency medical dispatchers so they can provide an even more effective call and dispatching service to our responders and the community. This system will also include a management information system that will monitor all types of suppression, EMS rescue, fire prevention investigation responses, and will provide valuable statistics. Increase public safety community outreach programs in an effort to educate our communities regarding fire and life safety while fostering stronger community relations in our villages and our business communities. Some of our challenges. These goals and objectives continue to experience ongoing challenges with our retirement, extended military deployments, and medical profiles. Despite these challenges, we remain a department that is task purpose driven and mission focused. However, these absences within our department will continue to challenge our ability to meet the NFPA OSHA standards, specifically the 2-in, 2-out rule, primarily in our first-line supervisory positions. These gaps largely reside in our Operations Bureau, where the loss of institutional knowledge and experience with our first-line and middle management supervisor positions is noticeably felt. In line with the Governor and the Lieutenant Governor's commitment to our island safety, we continue to work with the administration to address promotions and hiring of additional firefighters. Because of our attrition rate, we are challenged with reducing the needs for overtime expenditures while still being able to provide the necessary services to save lives and protect property at the level of service the community has come to expect and deserves. Since FY 2017 to present, 90 personnel have either retired resigned, or separated from GFD. During the same period, we have hired 79 fire recruits. This is inclusive of the 34 22nd Fire Cycle fire recruits that we recently hired and are going through our training pipeline as we speak. This equals a net loss of 11 personnel. Because of this, we anticipate continuous increases in overtime expenditures to meet operational staffing needs in our response facilities. Despite the attrition rate we are experiencing, along with the challenges it poses, we continue to ensure that we work within our budget while still meeting the mission mandates of our department. Given these challenges, we pride ourselves in the accomplishments we continue to realize through the professional and selfless servants that make up the Guam Fire Department. Highlights. As stated just a moment ago, we recently began the 22nd Fire Cycle Academy with 34 new fire recruits who will be a welcomed addition to our department once they have completed all certification requirements and testing. We are on the verge of replacing our antiquated 911 system with the build-out of the next-gen 911 platform currently in its design and installation phase. In coordination with GCC, Department of Labor, and the School of EMS, our first paramedic course is on its final phase of training and certification, and we look forward to graduating the first class in the coming weeks. Through the Office of Highway Safety, hydraulic extrication or jaws of life tools have been acquired, putting in the hands of our professionals the latest innovation in extrication equipment. We continue to equip our responders with the latest hazardous response gear, confined space rescue equipment, and the refurbishment of 20 self-contained breathing apparatuses. We are in the procurement process for the acquisition of 2 structural fire pumpers, delayed significantly because of availability with U.S. manufacturers due to COVID-19. Through a generous grant from GETA, our department was able to purchase 3 unmanned aerial vehicles, or drones, to be used for fire and rescue operations. These drones will provide real-time feedback to incident commanders and allow quicker decision-making and additional viewpoints without exposing our firefighters to unnecessary risk. With the recent purchase of a rescue command vehicle, vital resources for the incident command post and long-term search and rescue evolutions can be brought to the scene. Equipped with a winch and tow hitch, the command vehicle can also bring watercraft and all-terrain vehicles in tow if needed. Other accomplishments include, but are not limited to, attaining of the National Fire Academy State Point of Contact designation and the first ever wildland fire investigator certifications for our personnel. What I am most proud of is the community partnerships and volunteerism of the Guam Fire Department members that has resulted in renovations and repairs and painting of various fire stations around the island, along with the numerous charity drives, cleaning and painting of school bus stops, landscaping efforts at clinics for the elderly, as well as donation of school supplies and equipment. Ongoing and future projects, as stated previously, the next-gen 911 platform has been awarded, and we are expecting to go live on the new system by the end of this year. We continue to work with GURA to build a new Sinahanya fire station, as well as an ongoing search to coordinate with GETA to secure alternate funding via interested business investors to relocate and build a new Tumuning fire station. In addition to building a new fire station, GFD is working closely with the Office of Homeland Security to secure funding for the hardening of our existing stations. These funds, if awarded, will be used to protect fire station personnel and equipment during natural and man-made disasters. This includes backup power generators, storm shutters, and apparatus bay doors. GFD continues to work with the Department of Agriculture, GPD, and GETA to ensure grant funding is built to secure grant funding to build the Eastside Talafofo boat ramp. This will provide a much-needed access for not just recreational boating, but for emergency response to waters along those shores. GFD has begun planning meetings with GVB, building meetings with GVB on building a rescue base in Tumon, This additional rescue base will place responders within 2 minutes response time to any water-related incidents in the Tumon Bay area, the beachside most frequently utilized by both local residents and visitors alike. Furthermore, we will be procuring firewater tenders during this fiscal year to replace our aging fleet. These tanker trucks can provide water sources to rural areas or augment areas with little to no water pressure. GFD continues to work with DOA in the creation of EMT and fire inspector positions. To improve the quality of life and standards for our personnel, we are working with the Port Authority of Guam to renovate the Agate Rescue Base located at the Agate Marina. The Guam Fire Department is an all-hazards response career organization that consists of the following: the Office of the Fire Chief, Administrative and Support Services Bureau, EMS Rescue Operations Bureau, Fire Suppressions Bureau, and the Training Bureau, Fire Preventions Bureau, as well as our E911 Communications Bureau. Our proposed budget. The Guam Fire Department is requesting the total amount of $39,852,759 for fiscal year 2023. This amount reflects an increase of $8,278,332, or 26.2% increase from our FY22 appropriations from all funding sources. The table details the amount being requested for each funding source and reflects the amount of increase or decrease when compared to our FY22 authorization levels. In our general fund, GFD's FY 2023 proposed budget from the general fund reflects an increase of $8,110,271 from our FY 22 authorization level. These increases are on personal services and are attributed to the following: $4.9 million to cover the cost of implementing Executive Order Number 2022-01, which is law enforcement officers' pay plan that increased salaries of firefighters by 18%. $2.3 million for the salaries and benefits of the 34 recently hired fire recruits. $900,000 to cover the cost of promotions of firefighters. In our special funds, E911 surcharge, GFD's FY 2023 proposed budget from the E911 surcharge fund reflects an increase of $13,525, or 0.6%, compared to the authorization levels of 2022. GFD's proposed budget from this funding source includes funding to adequately address personal services as well as operations and utility requirements to effectively and efficiently operate the 911 center. Our Flame Fund, GFD's FY 2023 proposed budget from the Flame Fund reflects an increase of $154,536, or 15.9%, when compared to the authorization levels of FY 22. Funding being requested from this funding source will address the Guam Fire Department's annual requirements for contractual service supplies and materials, equipment and capital outlay categories. GFD is in dire need to procure medical, firefighting, and rescue equipment that are either damaged due to wear and tear, have exceeded their recommended lifespan. Furthermore, adequate funding for capital outlay will allow GFD to procure emergency response vehicles to replace our current fleet that have exceeded its lifespan and are experiencing frequent breakdowns. Conclusion. This concludes our presentation, and I would like to assure you that GFD's proposed FY 2023 budget will provide the adequate funding necessary to sustain our current progression in maintaining and/or improving our level of public service. The Guam Fire Department is deeply committed to meeting our island's expectations to continue to provide the professional, dedication and high-quality services that our island communities have come to expect from the women and men of our Guam Fire Department. I am personally committed to work with each and every one of you to secure the needs of our island, to ensure the needs of our island are addressed within the realms of our fire service and public safety. Thank you again for allowing me this opportunity, and I look forward to your questions and recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. I'd like to also recognize my colleagues that have joined me this morning, beginning with Senator Jim Moylan, Senator Joanne Brown,
Good morning, Senators.
Senator Tello Tideway, and Senator Tony Ada.
Good morning, Senators.
So you won't need the slides then, because your presentation covered it all.
Yes, sir.
Okay, then number one, I'm happy to see where you identified the Talafofo Bay, the ramp. I'm happy with that.
Yes, sir.
I'm aware of how much that's going to cost, but it'll meet that requirement for the folks down south and meet the requirement that the fire department has for rescue, because there's no means to rescue. Otherwise, you end up at hopefully Marisu to go out, and you hope to get out, versus you end up at Agate.
That's true, sir.
And then the other areas that you've identified, I'm in full support of that. And with that, I'll ask Senator Moylan, my colleagues, if they have any questions for you. Begin with Senator Moylan, followed by Senator Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chief, for your presentation.
Good morning, Senator Moylan.
Good morning. and for your team being with us today. I appreciate your slides and the written testimony. It's easy to follow along.
Thank you.
With that. You discussed about the building, construction, renovation, and the inspection process that the department provides. Of course, this is a joint operation with different agencies in the government of Guam. From what you're seeing and how these things are working out, is there any tweaking that's necessary to help expedite the process of permitting that you may see, or if things are working out well, what do you see it could be helpful, or are you happy with how things are going with this being one of your responsibilities in the department?
No, thank you for the question, Senator. If I may, I'd like to defer that over to Assistant Chief Joey Manabusan, who actually has been sitting on the Business Licensing and Permitting Center Committee, addressing kind of what you've already, you're asking as far as how we can streamline processes. So if I may, I'd like to turn it over to him. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, Senators. Chief Manabusan, Fire Prevention Bureau. At this point, the program for developing an online platform is underway, and what we're looking at is they're going to be setting up a platform that's going to increase visibility and transparency on where any given plan or permit is at. So, like if somebody's asking what is the holdup, the delay, they'll actually be able to see it just by going online, the end customers, end users. So we're looking forward to that being completed. Though the foundation has been started and it's being coordinated through the Bureau of Statistics and Plans, and we're really looking forward to that. In the meantime, what we are doing is we already started the whole process of digital reviews of plans. And that was actually an outcome, a positive outcome that happened during the pandemic. So we're already we got a leg up on that and moving forward with that. In terms of inspections and delays, I have to say that Guam probably has one of the fastest turnaround times on permits and plan reviews. Contrary to what some people say, very few, our turnaround time is very quick, sir. And you can actually compare it to places throughout the United States.
And if I can expound on that a little bit, Senator, I know there is an effort to also permit concurrent review of plans. So at present, it has to go through each one of those checkpoints or signatures. The effort with the BLPC, along with DRT and several of the stakeholders, is to be able to do concurrent review, so that we are not waiting for the person ahead of us to do the review before it gets to us. So that's still very much being built out, but that's going to be a great positive feature for that process.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yesterday I had the opportunity to meet up with, looks like the next graduating class when they were
Yes,
down
sir.
there at Adelup with the governor's presentation. So it was nice to see everybody looked like a full house. But as I looked at your numbers on your report, you also discussed about retirement or people leaving, and at the end, the bottom line, we're short 11, which is better than a higher number, but it's still, we're short 11. So when folks other than retirement, what were some of the other reasons for leaving the department, the fire department? Is there something we should be concerned about?
No, sir, not necessarily concerned about. I will tell you the great thing about the Guam Fire Department is that anybody that we get through our training pipeline who actually graduates and is sworn in typically does a full 20 to 30-year career. So we have a great retention. Those who choose to leave service before that, usually it's because of whether it be a family situation that requires them to go off island, another job opportunity, education, things of that nature. So other than that, we're very pleased to say that for the most part, we keep them from cradle to grave. Well, probably not grave. Let's not say grave. I apologize. Cradle to their retirement so they can enjoy it.
So of course, there's a lot of folks that are still on their original Government of Guam retirement plan, right?
Yes, sir.
And so many years and so forth. Now we're on this newer Government of Guam retirement, different percentage and so forth, but it also, so for your recruits, like what we see, this young class that graduated, I'm not sure their average ages, but if they so wish to have a career from cradle till
retirement.
What would their how many years would they have to be a fire in the fire department, climbing the ladder and doing their stuff before they're actually able to retire?
Senator, that's actually a very good question. I would suspect, given I wish I had that answer as far as what the average age of our 22nd fire cycle is. They are a young group. I think our youngest is actually, I believe, 21, and our oldest is 46 or 47. So the younger ones would have to stay around quite a bit. They would have to serve quite a long time as far as being able to make themselves eligible for retirement under the current retirement plan. What that time would be would be dependent on the age of the recruit at this time.
Nationally, is there some states that require a certain age and you can no longer be a fireman? Is that a situation?
I'm not sure I'd be able to answer what's done nationally. My immediate point of reference that I'm aware of is the Federal Fire Service. Federal Fire Department, when they bring in their firefighters, I believe the oldest that they can come in is about 38, because they have to do their full 20 years to make what their retirement is, 50, I believe it's 58, 57, 58. So their cutoff for recruitment is at I want to say it's 38 years old. Please don't quote me on that though. But there is like a cutoff age for recruitment. Because the intent is for them to do a full 20-year career and be able to retire. I believe it's also at 58. Again, please don't quote me on those numbers, Senator.
Okay,
But there is a.
Yeah. I'm just wondering if I was a fire guy and at the age of 65, am I still going to be running up a ladder? I'm not sure, but you guys are in shape, so you got to keep it going.
As long as you're able to do it, Senator,
Okay.
you're welcome.
Okay. How's the post-commission requirements coming along for you guys? I know
We're actually doing very well in that regard. I will share that fitness has always been a part of a firefighter's career or profession. With the post, it only ramped that up because now making it a requirement only just enhances our program a little bit more. You will find that if you go to the stations, that they routinely are training, doing physical fitness, specifically to the post standards. So I am very pleased with that effort from our ground troops in the stations.
In your budget proposal, are you continuously now having a budget for the next training cycle and the following? Did you include that in your budget?
So that's correct, Senator. So that will be our attempt for next fiscal year. We will want to obviously budget for additional personnel because, as you already indicated, we do have people who retire or leave service, and so we need to replace them as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But finally, you discussed some federal funding and all. So what are the main things you look at from the federal government to help support our local Guam Fire Department? What do you rely on that's important to the department with federal aid?
That's an interesting question. It would probably fall more along the lines of equipment, Senator. That's what we are usually challenged with. Given the fact that we also do wildland firefighting as well, that environment in and of itself is very demanding, both of our personnel and our equipment. Hazardous response, things of that nature, all requires these equipment replacement, updates, tech refreshes, things of that nature. So if we could, the federal government, it would be along the lines of equipment.
Okay. How good is that communication going with you? Or how do you link up to ensure you get that interest come across so you can get that funding to you?
Yeah, so I will tell you, Senator, we have a great relationship with the Department of Agriculture in that regard. Director Breck over there has been very good, as well as Chief Christine Farron. We're constantly in dialogue with each other and any opportunities for training opportunities, equipment surpluses. We've actually were able to obtain 2 fire trucks through DOAG from the GSA, from DRMO. That we were able to put into our inventory to help bridge the gap that we have with replacement of vehicles. So we do have good working dialogues with our federal partners in that regard, and they've been very responsive.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Morton. Just to make sure I don't miss out on this one, the bill that identifies the fire department for a different retirement program, that did not fall on deaf ears, that's still being worked out with the retirement fund to determine because we had some of your folks show up in my office and they were concerned with Senator Pidu that the retirement fund will come up with a plan that hopefully will meet the needs of the fire department folks, okay?
We appreciate that, Senator.
Okay,
And
so-
I know our firefighters will be greatly appreciative of that.
Yeah, so it's not on deaf ears. It's being worked out. It's just timing for just about everything else.
Yes, sir.
Senator Brown, do you have any questions for the panel, ma'am?
Good morning, Senator Brown.
Good morning. You know, I'm looking at the breakdown here with regards to the salaries, and I just wanted to ask, because we have a substantial amount set aside for overtime on top of the base salaries. I mean, you must be the envy of the government of Guam, because I thought the Port Authority had high compensation. We're on average paying, what, collectively, $128,000 to $150,000 to $200,000 per firefighter.
That's correct, Senator.
I'm sure it's beneficial, certainly, for your firefighters, but I have to tell you, I don't know if the people of Guam are aware they're paying this much per firefighter. You're on average looking at $30,000 to $40,000 a year per firefighter for overtime, and then on top of that, another 30, 40 plus for specialty pay.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, Senator. So part of that overtime expense is incorporated in our schedule. So 14 hours of a firefighter's pay is actually overtime or the Fair Labor Standards Act overtime. So that's anything over 106 hours. We work a 120-hour pay period, and anything in excess of 106 is compensated at 1.5.
This
And then, of
also,
course- I'm sorry.
also includes your assistant fire chiefs, your fire battalion. I mean, is everyone in management also receiving overtime and specialty pay?
With the exception of my position. That's correct, yes.
Well, that's
Right.
interesting. I mean, other departments, you know, my deputies never received overtime.
Well, our deputy is also operational as well, so the deputy actually works those hours, what we call chief of the day. So there is a day allocated for each one of the assistant chiefs to pull a 24-hour shift in order to help augment the...
I'm sure you can justify that maybe or from your position, but I have to tell you, I mean, a lot of management people in government of Guam, once they ascend to these positions, do not receive any overtime compensation, and yet when the time comes, when the demand is there, they're there to do the work, and there is no additional compensation. You know, it's nice the chairman wants to address retirement, and, you know, hey, everybody wants all these wonderful things. I just want to make sure we have the ability to pay for it. Because compared to Guam Police Department, you know, it's not like I haven't looked at budgets before, but this one in particular, I'm really taken aback at the amount that it's costing in comparison to the rest of the government. On top of that, I'm looking at a budget here, and I'm not sure which figure to look at with regards to collective increase for 2023, but we have one figure here. The governor's request is about $36.5 million, and then we have another one here for your agency's request at $39.8 million, which is about an $8.2 million increase from last fiscal year. Which figure are we looking at? Do we know?
Let me have Assistant Chief Nkanko answer that for you, Senator.
Good morning, Senator. Assistant Fire Chief Mike Nkanko. Can you repeat your question in regards to the...
Which figure are we looking at? Because we have the governor's request here at $36.5 million. And that's an increase. I mean, fiscal year 2021, we're looking at 29.8, and then fiscal 2022, we're looking at 28.4. FY23, we're looking at 36.5. That's the governor's request. Agency's request for 2023 is $39.8 million.
Yes, it is inclusive. The 36 million that you're seeing there is from the general fund in itself.
Mm-hmm.
The total 39 million includes the special funds, which is the flame fund and the E911 surcharge.
But that's still about an $8.2 million increase
Yes,
from
it
the
is
past fiscal year.
Yes, it is 8.1 million, 8,110,000, if I'm not mistaken.
Was any, you know, I realize the demands having run agencies. I understand that there's always going to be a demand. There's going to be an inherent increase just because of increments and, of course, insurance and other things that increase the operational costs of a department or agency. But has any consideration been taken in your management in looking at how can you minimize costs, because when we get off and we step off this federal budget that we've received, you know, this gift from the federal government as a result of this unfortunate situation with this pandemic, and we're actually going to be expected to survive on our own economy, I don't know that our people can afford all this right now. I mean, you see the lack of activity in our major tourism industry and the support industries for that. And I have to tell you, you're only, what, 2 or 3 days into this budget process. We have DOC here yesterday asking for another $9 million. You're looking at $8 million. I don't know where the money's going to come from. I mean, we can be nice and cordial, and I guess I should do that because it's what a lot of my colleagues do, rah-rah. And yet down the road, the pain's going to be felt if we have to start cutting. And I've lived through that. Some of you have been around, Mr. Kang. I know you've been around to live through that.
Yes, yes.
So has any consideration been put in place? Because I just don't want to sit here and be cordial and smile. And you know, we just wait till we get hit down the road and then we figure it out. I'd like to know if anything has been addressed, or what can you do to ensure that you can still be able to compensate your people, manage the fire department. That's where the greatness and leadership comes from. That's why you're Chief Stone put in this position, is because we expect, not just in terms of being in the position, but that you're going to be able to manage through some very challenging times. And my fear, and maybe it's just mine, I might be living in my own world of illusion, but I anticipate we're going to be in for some challenging years ahead. We're fortunate, you know, the military expenditures and stuff, but even that is not going to ultimately add up to the growth rate this government has had in the last 2 to 3 years. It's continued to expand at a level that I don't believe our ratepayers and taxpayers of Guam literally can afford. So are you looking at that or planning ahead for that at all?
Senator, I appreciate your comments, and so the answer is yes. The Guam Fire Department, you know, for myself along with the staff, we constantly look at what areas we can save our funding money with. But unfortunately, because of the shortage of our staffing, in order for us to meet our mission requirements, it requires for us to call firefighters that are actually supposed to be off to come in so that we can meet our minimum staffing requirements. As a result of that, we incur the overtime. I am happy to announce that with the 22nd fire cycle, 34 new fire recruits, once they graduate, that will definitely lessen the impact to our overtime.
Well, has that been taken into any consideration with the figures that are passed here? Because I'll tell you, I got to redo my career. I got to go to Guam Fire if I know I'm going to get $30,000 to $40,000 to $50,000 a year in overtime. I'm in the wrong job.
And we'd welcome you,
That's
Senator.
like literally the salary of every member of the Guam legislature and what you're looking at overtime. I mean, I don't have any issue of people working for what they have and receiving their compensation, but at the same time, I mean, the question has been always lingering, and we discussed this last budget year, because you have your high-end management people that are receiving overtime, and in other department and agencies, that is not the standard. And then the question is raised, how are they working all these hours? How are they literally, really, every hour on the hour, or even the explanation that they go home and they still work from home? You know, most people are not going to buy that. I don't. And I've walked the walk, and I can talk the talk because I've been there. I know what it's like to run a major operation and deliver. So, you know, you guys need to be mindful of that, because publicly, everyone's going to look at this and go, what? Really? It's just not humanly possible for some of the explanations we got last year in terms of the overtime, especially from upper management. And as I mentioned, these questions and concerns are coming from within the Guam Fire Department, from your own people questioning upper management. Not only are they you guys are earning the higher salary levels, but on top of that, then you're also getting overtime on top of that, and they're questioning the ability to justify, especially if the work is not being done or somebody's shortchanging their performance or their hours. Of course, in leadership, you're going to want to think that all your people are delivering and doing what they're supposed to do, and you're banking that what they're telling you they're doing is indeed the case. But when these things are starting to creep out and different information comes to surface, and we discussed this last year, in all fairness, because trust me, most people are not earning these type of salaries here on Guam. They can have a PhD at the university and not earn what some members of your department are earning. So I think we're going to want to make sure that, gosh, if you're getting this kind of compensation, that you're working for it.
And Senator, that is the case. We are working it. So as I shared with you last year, we have several layers to be able to account for those hours. We have a supervisor, we have a commander, we have a bureau chief, and then you have my signature. So there are 4 tiers of scrutiny that goes into those time records or timesheets. And their times are being accounted for. So as I stated with you last year again, if there's evidence to the contrary, I encourage you to bring it forward and we will take a look at it. I will push it over to our Internal Affairs Division and we'll take care of it.
Well, and it's not necessary for me to bring it forward. Also, it's incumbent upon you as the head of the agency to also go and check on your people, because I used to do that too.
And I do that
You
as
know,
well,
you
Senator.
show up at strange hours and they're not expecting you because they're expecting management to not know any better. And, you know, I'll get out there and I'll walk the walk. I'll check. I'll make sure and verify. And if they're not, I'll know it. I mean, it's nice to trust what your people tell you, but it's always good to verify. Because a lot of people want to make management and upper management think everything's all good, got you covered, and then all of a sudden, you get surprised. And I don't think anyone wants to be put in that particular situation.
Well, Senator, I assure you, I do make my rounds and I do visit the firefighters and our dispatchers and our maintenance shop. But I also have a lot of confidence in our personnel. They're entrusted with these responsibilities, and so, I hold them to that. And like you said, we do the trust but verify.
And I appreciate that. There are a lot of good people, but I also know from experience after now going on 34 years in government, there's always a few that just always want to get around the system. They take pride in the fact that they don't even show up to work, or, they really do. And I'm sorry, I've been in several agencies. I wish that was not the case. And it's very frustrating for those that are dedicated and do work hard. And your own people know it. Your own people know it, that sometimes that kind of nonsense is going on. I wanted to ask with regards to drug testing, how often do you do drug testing? Because I'm assuming your firefighters are all designated positions.
That is correct, Senator.
How and when was your last drug testing, and how many drug testings have you performed during your tenure as fire chief?
So we have done random drug testing one time back in 2019. And then with COVID, we weren't able to do as many drug testings, and so it was based on if there was if somebody was of interest or somebody was brought to our attention, that's when we would do the testing. Other than that, we have not done any drug testing as of late. I think the last drug test we did was a few months ago, and that was the last time.
Are you planning on doing it? There is a previous executive order. It's not by this administration, but there's an executive order that does require regular routine drug testing almost on an annual basis for all designated positions in the government of Guam. Are you aware of that?
Yes, Senator.
Is that something you kind of look at complying unless the current governor decides to change it, or we mandate it, which we may have to, because I don't see consistency in the government of Guam with regards to that. And again, it's not so much, we're going to catch someone. I kind of look at it as a deterrent. Hopefully that our responsible public officials, and that to me is everyone that works for the government of Guam receives a paycheck from the people, is being responsible. Right now we have such a pandemic of drug abuse in this community. I'm sure even in the line of your work you see the results of that. I want to make sure that our public officials that are all working are being responsible and setting the example, because it's the impact to our community, to our children, to our elderly, to people that go to work every day worrying if their homes are going to get broken into, or, can they safely get from a building to a car at night and get home safely, is a result of the drug abuse in this community that's growing. Drugs are so much cheaper. It's like going to Ross, It's unfortunate, but it's a reality that we have to deal with. And for me, at least in my past life in management, I've implemented it because I want to make sure it's a deterrent to help encourage responsible individuals. We don't want to go down that road, because look at the impact. It means I might lose my job. Because I get the crying tears even from grown men afterwards. Oh, I'm sorry. Gosh, my family, yeah. Did you think about that when you made those type of decisions? And it's unfortunate at that point, because when you take these oath, you take these designated positions of responsibility, there's an expectation, there's a higher expectation, and I'm concerned that there's just not consistency in our government to set that example at a time when there's so much suffering out there in our community that our people are faced with regards to that. So I hope to hear more that, you guys are following through with regular drug testing of your employees.
Yes, Senator.
How is the maintenance of your equipment being addressed? Do you still have your own mechanic personnel that are doing it? Do you have it serviced at auto companies here on Guam to do repair, a combination of both?
Yes, Senator. So it is a combination of both. We do have our own mechanics within the department that do phenomenal work and have been doing so, especially during the pandemic or at the height of COVID. And then anything that goes outside of their scope or their abilities, we do contract that out. And so we're able to maintain the fleet the way we have as a result of that.
How many ambulances do you have currently that are operational, and where are they located, just so our people are aware if they called for assistance, they would know in their respective village. What villages, services, what areas?
So at present in the Northern Command, we have ambulances at each of our fire stations in Northern Command. And down in South, it'll be at our Inalahan Fire Station, as well as our Umatic Fire Station.
And how many?
And Agate, I'm sorry.
And how many operational ambulances do you have?
So that is no less than 6 on average. So on average, we have 8, depending on staffing availability too. Because that is our challenge as well.
And with regards to your fire trucks, how many fire trucks do you have and how many do you have operational?
So we have 12 fire trucks at the 12 fire stations. Currently, we have 1 fire truck that's in maintenance. So we do have plans in place to do the overlapping coverages, so those areas are still have coverage.
Appreciate the update, because historically we've all gone through the issue with regards to the equipment not being maintained and being down. I don't have any other key questions at this point, Mr. Chairman, but please be mindful, because I am concerned. I want to make sure that we're prepared, because it's very easy to sit here, and I wish I could do it, because politically it's so in to do that. It's so in to sit here and talk about how great it is, and no problem, we got the budget covered, and we're going to take care, praise the Lord. And yet, we're not prepared, and that's the thing, that's the concern I have coming in with, because I've never seen the leaps and bounds of increases that are being requested from different government agencies that are not in reality of where our financial world is. Even now we're bragging about excesses. As we get closer to these budget amounts being audited, we're going to have even less available and other demands that are going to come to us. And I just want to make sure that in your mind you're already thinking and prepared that if the revenue is not there to accomplish the things that you have proposed here, that you're already ready to see how you can minimize that impact and operate with less. Because I've spent most of my time in the legislature budgeting for less. This is the first time in first term I've come in here that money's falling from the sky, and I don't believe it's going to last. Everything that goes up will come down, and the older I get, these adages have so much truth to them. So I'm just asking you to be mindful of that.
Yes, Senator,
I appreciate it.
it.
Thanks so much for responding
Thank you,
to my
Senator.
questions.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Senator Tello, you have any questions for the panel?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning to my colleagues, and most especially good morning to GFD. Thank you so much for all the hard work that you're doing for our community. And I just want to give a little shout out. I don't know if he's listening, but my son just graduated from fireman school. He's now a fireman at Scottsdale, Arizona.
Very good, Senator. Good for you.
Just graduated on this weekend, and I'm very proud of him and all the hard work that he got. It took him 10 years to try and get a position out there, but he never gave up. He was an EMT, and then waited for that opportunity, and it rose, and I'm very proud of him to be a fireman.
Well, we welcome him to the profession, Senator.
Yes.
Thank you.
Now, if I can just get him to come over here and be a fireman. But I think he has a better half over there who's, by the way, who's also a fireman too. She's a firewoman there as well, and an EMT, so it's all in the family. So just got to get him over here. But that being said, I am concerned. Senator Brown mentioned some very concerning issues that, especially when it comes to budget, because we are in a artificial economy right now, and where it looks like there's money, excess funding. That might be the last time we see that in a long time. So my question is, in your budget, have you incorporated this pay raise for the public officers, and it's been incorporated, and how much was that just for your department alone for the pay raises that was implemented by the governor?
Thank you for the question, Senator. As stated in my testimony, $4.9 million of that has been earmarked for the 18% increase.
Okay. Now, during a committee of the whole that we had recently, maybe a couple sessions ago, Director Byrne was before us and started mentioning of the excess revenue of the FY21 excess revenue of $62 million, and how a lot of that was already being spent. And he started going down the line and stating that $25 million for the LEAP, and then he goes further down for special funds that were short at about $20 million. And then he brought up the over-expenditure of the Guam Fire Department, $5 million. So I was really quite surprised to hear that from them. $5 million from the over-expenditure, and they expect to use FY21 funding to cover that on the over expenditure. Can you explain that?
Yes, Senator. A large portion of that expenditure is a result of the overtime required, especially during the pandemic, and the responses that were required, the response capabilities that were required in order to answer the COVID pandemic. It came down to firefighters not being able to get a day off. I needed everybody that we could to be in the fire stations. And so as a result of that, it was an increase in overtime because of the additional hours and the additional need. And as Chief is pointing out to me, we lost about 34 firefighters during that same period as well. So we lose people, which means we have to bring somebody in for overtime to cover those losses in order to maintain our mission requirements. And especially during COVID, there was a very high demand on our firefighters, and they answered the call, and I'm extremely proud of all the work that they've done thus far.
I know that you probably might not know this, but I'm anticipating GFD to come in front of us to explain any kind of over expenditures, but I haven't seen anything at this point. Why is it only fire department has a $5 million over expenditure, and I haven't seen that with GFD? I mean, they have just as many public officers out there patrolling and during COVID at the same time. So it's kind of a little bit confusing. Why so much from GFD? $5 million. And then on top of that, you received $3.5 million from ARP funding from the governor's office. And when I looked into the expenditure of it, it hasn't been expended yet. So that money, has it been expended with GFD, the $3.5 million that you received from her office?
So we haven't, as of this hearing. However, next week, I believe, Chief, we're planning on reaching out for the hazardous pay and some of our overtime costs.
Yes, good morning, ma'am. The governor's the ARP funds, as they call it, GFD has been given $3.5 million to use. Approximately $2.7 million will be used to cover costs for the premium pay, which is the hazardous pay in itself. And that is one of the eligible expenditures with the ARP funds. Now, the remaining funds, the chief is presently assessing, or his staff is presently assessing our priorities, and to ensure that whatever we set as priority, that it's eligible based on the funds, the rules and regulations of the funds itself.
The guidance rules, yeah, on how to spend the funding.
Yes.
Is this for FY21?
No, this is we were granted that in FY21, but it's a carryover, so we're going to be using that for FY22. Now, in
The
regards
3.5, you
Yes.
plan on using it for FY22
Yes.
to cover?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Now, in regards to, I just want to add on to the increase in expenditures in 21. Mind you, the GFD added an additional 2 transport units, 2 ambulances out there to address the needs of COVID. We added more positions as our infection control officer, who ensures that the fire personnel are fully protected and following guidelines, CDC guidelines himself. That, and of course, the chief mentioned within that time frame, we lost 34 personnel. Every personnel we lose, that means 5 days that we would have to recall personnel in. That's 120 hours lost for each firefighter that retires or resigns in itself. Mm-hmm. So that basically explains or justifies the increase in expenditures. Now, what's really worse is the fact that as we will go on to this fiscal year, we had 11 additional personnel retiring in itself. That again is going to increase expenditures for this fiscal year. But with the hiring of the 34 additional personnel, that will decrease our anticipated expenditures in 22 to approximately 50% for FY23. So the only solution to actual decrease in expenditures, because it's basically all in personnel services, is the hiring of personnel or recruits, which we did in this fiscal year.
Okay, that's on 4.9 for additional funding for the pay raise for the fire, which has been incorporated. $3.5 million, which you plan on using in FY22
Yes.
to cover hazardous pay, and then you're determining the remaining amount. But then how much was your hazardous pay in FY22 now? I mean, how much have you,
We anticipate an expenditure of $2.2 million.
only 2.2 in hazardous for FY22? That's
Yes,
the
ma'am.
estimated?
Yes, ma'am.
So then the ARP funding will be able to cover the full amount?
Pardon me?
The ARP funding will be able to cover the full amount for FY22?
Yes, yes.
Did you have any lapses in FY21? Probably not. I mean, you had a $5 million
Unfortunately,
raise.
we haven't had lapses within the last
Yeah.
3-4 fiscal years.
So has the governor reserved any of your allotment? I mean, I'm showing here in a report recently of $3.8 million that was set aside in reserve for the fire department. Is that still true, or she has released the full amount to you because
You want me to answer?
she's holding 3.8?
Yes, every budget cycle, every beginning of the fiscal year, and it's been occurring within the last, 10, 15 years, fiscal years, there's normally like a 15% of your total appropriations that are held in reserve. But that doesn't mean we can't use the reserve. We've been tapping into our reserves. Right now, what GFD, the money that's in reserve right now is basically for overtime and equipment. Those are the only two items that are being held in reserve. Now, because we are about to procure equipment, we're in the process of procuring equipment, we've submitted a request for release of those funds. And BBMR have been very good in regards to, we've justified, of course, the cost or the reason, but they've been very good in releasing the funds as we need them in itself. Now, the overtime, the funds are being held because we are budgeted quarterly in itself. We are required to submit an overtime plan for one per quarter and not for the entire fiscal year. So as we need them for the upcoming quarter, we request that those monies be released, and they do release them.
In your staffing, when you have people who are retiring or who leave the department and they're at a certain grade, like battalion chief, fire captain, fire service specialist, further up, right? And when they retire, and then you're losing a lot of people at a higher level, right? You're bringing in recruits that come in to become firefighter ones.
Correct.
Okay, so the cost of these are a little bit lower than those who are retiring, correct?
That's correct.
So you're still, so you don't automatically just, bump up the next person to get a promotion when you have a new group of recruits coming in, because not everyone could be a firefighter one, right? They're filling those positions. So how do you determine whether someone gets that bump in position and salary?
So it is a promotion process. As a matter of fact, we just this morning announced promotion announcements for all of our vacancies. And so as people leave service, we would absolutely love to be able to fill those vacancies with the next qualified individual for that position. So that is an effort that we have ongoing to be able to identify those individuals through an application process, an interview process, and a selection process. Is there a
cap, Chief? Is there a cap of how many battalion chiefs you have, how many, certain individuals with those positions? Is there a cap on that?
So there is a number based on organizational needs. So yes, there is. So currently we have 6, 7, 8 battalion chiefs. 6. So we have 6 battalion chiefs that cover all of our bureaus. I presently have 14 of, right, 14 filled fire captain positions, so I do have the vacancies, and that's what we're actually
And you have
trying to
32
promote. Yes,
vacancies for fire captain, 32.
correct.
There's not a cap on that. I'm showing a total of 46, so I guess that's the cap that I'm looking at. I'm looking
That
on
is-
the vacancy
that's correct,
report.
yes.
So these are your caps for those positions, right?
That is correct.
And right now, how many do you have in the next cycle?
So the cycle only will have fire recruits. They won't be fire captains. So
Right,
the
exactly.
promotion would happen from within, yes.
Right, so how, I mean, it's going to get to the point, right now you have fire recruits at 34, vacant is only 4.
34 fire recruits, yes.
So you have filled already 34
34, and then we
fire
have,
recruits, and you only have 4 vacant.
that's correct. For the fire recruit position, correct.
Okay, and how many is in the next cycle that comes up?
We will ask for an additional 20.
An additional 20, and then
Correct.
once they graduate, they won't necessarily have a job, correct?
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand the
They
question.
won't necessarily, sorry, it just came from the dentist.
That's okay.
That's why the mask is, I'm drooling on one side, but, okay, so basically, your fire recruits, that are in a cycle, you would not put people in a cycle for fire recruits unless there is a position that's available. In other words, if you have a bunch of individuals who are going to the school, but there are no positions, does that ever happen? Or you only,
No, so the trigger point for a cycle is those vacancies.
because of vacancies?
Correct. And
So
so
right-
with the
yeah.
current promotions that we have ongoing,
Right.
that whole roll-up effect will take place, and then it will vacate that entry-level position, and then we recruit to
Push
those
up.
positions
Okay, so right now there's only 4 vacant, according to this,
at present.
at present.
But once promotions are done, and again, everybody has moved up into the appropriate
Right.
ranks, that will then open up the entry-level positions.
Have you placed this, have you funded in your budget for those 4 vacant positions? Is it budgeted in your?
No, because
It's not.
we budgeted for the 34 that we have ongoing right now.
But you don't budget for these vacant positions, is my question.
No, the 4 are just recently resigned or retired.
Oh, that's correct. Yes, I'm sorry. So those 4 vacancies were actually 4 firefighters who recently resigned or left service.
Explain, the reason.
Within the last 2 months.
Within the last couple of months, we've had 4 firefighters leave service for various reasons. And so that's what that number 4 is indicating, is capturing those 4 that just recently left service. The 34 were already recruited and selected.
Right.
Right.
Okay, so, and you put that in your budget, the 4? No,
No,
right?
no.
Okay, that was my question. 'Cause I don't want to be budgeting something that it's vacant, but we don't have the people to fill it right now at this position. 'Cause- Okay. You were talking about ambulances. I think BSP had a grant out there for 4 ambulances for your agency. You received 3. Has the 4th one come?
Actually, Senator, that was a total of 7. And
Total of 7?
we received all 7. Oh, I'm sorry.
And you
7?
received all of them? This is the BSP grant.
Correction, let me correct myself. So the BSP grant was 4. We've received all 4 of the BSPs, and then we had money to be able to buy the balance of 7.
Okay.
I'm
so
sorry,
you did
total
get-
of 7, sorry.
Okay, because it was announced earlier that you only received 3 of
Correct.
those ambulances, but now you have all 4
We
in
have
hand.
all the ambulances that we've ordered, yes.
And I know Senator Brown asked you about the maintenance of these vehicles, and it's good to hear that you have somebody on staff right now to cover them. That's really important. But have you looked in yet, what's the possibility of getting that ladder needed for these hotels, these, larger buildings?
So
It's-
you're
it's
referring
called
to the
a
high-rise unit?
Aerial ladder?
Aerial ladder or high-rise unit, yes.
Yeah, does the fire department have that yet?
So we do not have that in our inventory at present. Is it an apparatus that we could use? Yes, however, the cost of that particular apparatus could actually buy us 3 fire trucks. So the priority would be for the fire trucks.
We've got Shabaki Tower that just came up, you got the Nico, you got the Pacific Star, you've got quite a Pacific Islands Club. I think that's the tallest one, maybe, on this island. How are you going to address if there's a fire, in those areas on that top floor?
So the success of our fire prevention program lends to that. The requirements for those high-rise units are very strict with the fire protection systems, with the sprinkler systems, with the fire department connections that are associated with those types of facilities. That aids in the fire suppression. To be able to focus our attack, the firefighters would then go up to the respective floor that's involved, attach to these appliances, and be able to firefight from that position.
Well, I greatly appreciate all the preventive, maintenance that you're doing to ensure, that this doesn't happen. But one day, God forbid, and knock on wood, that nothing happens in these hotels in a situation like that where nobody was paying attention to the preventive, measures put in place, and then we're in trouble. And I'd hate to see that happen. How much would it cost for that aerial ladder?
I don't have a figure right off the top of my head, Senator. I believe the last time we looked at it was upwards of $1.8 million for one apparatus.
I think you need to look into that. You really do need to look into that. I think it'd bring a lot of comfort to our visitors coming to this island if they knew that, we were well equipped for any kind of emergency for our tourists that come here once we open up. So please look into that, Chief.
Absolutely, Senator. That is our effort at the moment.
And maybe we can get a grant, a federal grant. We got, 4 ambulances through a grant from BSP. Let's look at this aerial ladder. I mean, we do not have one at all,
Correct.
So maybe that'll help us get that grant moving. And speaking of upgrades and stuff that we're putting, how's the 911 upgrade? Has it been completed?
No, Senator, this project is ongoing. We are definitely in full motion. We are actually in a build-out install phase. As a matter of fact, we have our vendors on island right now providing the updates and then assessing infrastructure and where we're at as far as the build-out process is concerned. We are looking to cut over and go live by year's end.
By year's end?
Yes.
Oh, what's the funding? Is there any funding issues with that?
No, Senator. So the E911
Is
fund.
covering it?
Yes. And with the return of funds from the governor, that absolutely helped us put us in a better position to be able to do so.
How much money does that E911 generate for you annually?
2.2. So approximately 2.2 million per annum.
2.2, and how much is the 911
Cost.
upgrade?
So that
And
was what? So initial was 2.8.
2.8, so within 1 year, you would be able to cover the cost for that?
No,
And then I believe there might be some kind of service that
No,
you need to pay yearly, right?
yeah. The initial cost is 2.8 million.
I'm sorry, again?
The initial cost is 2.8 million.
2.8, yeah,
1.8 is needed for maintenance for the next 3 years
okay.
in itself. Now, we've been using the lapse funds, or the ones that were returned by the governor, of $3.8 million. And yes, we did mention when we met with all the personnel during our meeting that we would like to add on also, after we get the financial statements, to add on if we can be authorized to use the lapses in FY19, 20, and 21 to cover costs, to cover that cost in itself. Now, absent that, we would have, the only way we can afford the system is to use the general fund, which is actually stated on the law that created the 911, that should there not be sufficient funds in the surcharge, that the general fund will cover that. Or we can go to PUC and request for a $1 increase in the 911 fees. Mind you now, I think it was back in, 2000 that the fees were created. And then, of course, with the help of the then Senator Brown back then, again, she added the cost for the prepaid cards and other stuff that were not being charged. Now, the problem with the fee now right now, and I think the fire chief had mentioned it in previous hearings, is that we are not actually getting the full dollar that's being charged. for every your dollar that comes, that you get charged in the providers, are actually 85 cents that comes back to GFD, because PUC has allowed the providers to charge what they call administrative costs to build that dollar in itself. So we are only getting approximately 85 to 90 cents. As a matter of fact, the auditor provided during her audit 3 years ago, did kind of discovered that some providers were charging up to 15–20% of the dollar.
Is that by, I mean, the creation of the E91 fund clearly says the full dollar shall go to the Department of Fire, right? And it was, now you're saying that PUC came in and under their authority or jurisdiction, they decided to allow the provider to take 20% for administrative charge
20, yes.
for them. And yet PUC did not pay attention to the law that created the 911 to go upon themselves to bypass the law?
Yeah. I think that was resolved, ma'am, with regards to the clarification of the law itself when the audit was conducted 3 years ago. It did mention that the legislature now can come in and mandate that,
The full amount?
Yeah, the full amount in itself.
Well, I think we've got a bill coming our way then, because that's ridiculous to hear that PUC undermines what the legislature has created, a law, in law. So, I'm going to look into, definitely, our chair is just looking at me too, saying, what? We're going to look into this for sure and find out what's going on. But, to me, there's always three sides to a story, his, hers, and the truth. So I'm out searching for that truth on what really transpired, but you should be getting the full amount. But as I end my questions here, the 2.8 is what costs the E91 one. You receive annually from the generation of this 85 cents right now is how much?
2.2 million.
2.2.
Yes.
So there's definitely enough money coming in to pay for it, like you said, within 3 years, but you already have 3.8 from that was transferred back into the E911, right?
Yes.
So you are generating some money there. And in the meantime, this money is sitting in an account, right, for any use that you need for E911. But if there is some lapses or anything left over, you're looking at trying to expend that in somewhere else that may be helpful. Okay, well, that's a whole project by itself. So, very interesting, very interesting. I'm glad we had this conversation. So, Mr. Chair, with that being said, I think we got some...
I just want a point of clarification, ma'am. The 2.2 million that we generate yearly also pays for the personnel cost in itself.
For the... and how much does that cost?
The personnel is included within as the so-called system, the 911 system.
Okay.
It includes the personnel and the operations and everything else.
Which is how much annually?
1.7 million for personnel alone.
Okay, personnel.
Yes.
Okay, you still have a good balance. Okay, with that, Mr. Chair, I thank you, gentlemen, for all your hard work and your sacrificing, being the frontliners that you are. And as I pray for my son's safety as a fireman, I will also pray for our Guam firemen and all those who are involved with the Guam Fire Department as well, for their safety as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. I'll comment about that 911 issue. But Senator Adler, do you have any questions for the panel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Probably just a couple. Good morning, Chief, and to all of you. Welcome
Good morning,
to the
Senator.
Guam
How are you?
Legislature. And thank you for your presentation to the legislature for your annual budget. Perhaps just a couple of questions I have is the AARP funds that you received. I'm not sure if I missed it in the beginning when you first gave your presentation. Is any of that being used? Any of it been used to hire personnel?
No, not at this time,
Okay.
Senator.
So with the ARP funds, is any of it being used for the promotions?
No, sir.
None of it?
No.
Okay. So then, and I know you were saying, I think 2.7's already been set for
Correct.
one purpose, and then, so what is your priority with the remaining 800,000, I believe, right? That would be, Chief, 800,000?
Yeah, so the balance of that, Senator, is we're presently doing that assessment and setting those priorities based on our needs. And so that's a collective discussion as well as feedback from the field. And so we're still gathering that information and then making sure that we're staying within the left and right limits of the grant, of the program, I'm sorry.
Okay. And you were mentioning about your fire trucks and your ambulances. How many total ambulance do you have now on fleet?
14 total. So it's a total of 14 with a few of them that are at varying levels of maintenance and repair.
Yeah. So does this give you an opportunity to rotate ambulances in and out for maintenance and repairs and
That's correct, Senator.
leave the
We are
stations
in a much
with-
better position today, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember when we were lacking some, so fire trucks, and the fire trucks are the same thing, so not a problem with those. How about your rescue personnel, your rescue vehicles and your, what do they call them?
The rescue unit.
EMS vehicles, right? ALS.
ALS unit, so we actually have 2 ALS vehicles that are on island, just getting their, the logos and the sirens and the light bars placed on them. So we should have that replacement in our inventory here within the next few weeks.
So that'll give you a total of what, 4?
So, so they're replacements because the current 2 vehicles that we use for ALS have quite a few miles on them, as you can imagine. And so we would need to take them offline, provide the necessary maintenance to them if it's worth salvaging. But the new ones will be replacing that particular fleet of ALS units.
What's the year on the 2 other ALS units?
Do you know what's the year for the ALS units?
2020, 2019?
2015? I'm sorry. I believe it's around 2015 is the when we last replaced those units. 2017. Oh, 17.
2017? Yeah,
Smarter.
Still, yeah. Okay. And then, so on your E911, have you guys, already the procurement has been done? Okay. Is it a leased or owned unit?
It is a leased system, yes.
Okay. So that gives you an opportunity later on to replace it again later on and not worry about what we're going to do with the piece of junk that we currently have. And all right, yeah, I mean,
it's antiquated for sure, Senator, but
it truly is. I mean,
it's
you know,
amazing what our dispatchers are able to do with our current system up there. It really is.
Yeah, definitely. But that's why I'm saying now we can get rid of it. And what is the lease period?
3 years, correct? It's a 3-year lease period, Senator.
And that maintenance wasn't built into that lease when you guys started it, the procurement on that?
I'm sorry, one more time, Senator.
The lease. I mean,
So
you
it's
said
3 years.
you had 1.8 million on the side for.
That's maintenance.
So that wasn't built into the lease agreement when you guys did the procurement for the E911 system.
So the leasing is inclusive of maintenance, tech refresh, things of that nature.
So then the 1.8 million that you mentioned, Chief, for maintenance, what is that for?
No, the total cost of the system for the 3 years is 5.2 million, if I'm not mistaken. So it's 2.8 for the initial cost, the build-up and everything, then 1.8 million thereafter yearly for maintenance and updates, because the system is basically software.
Right. Yeah,
And it's,
okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure that how you guys procured it and had the lease or the maintenance put into it. So what is the agreement with the company on maintenance? Is that a monthly maintenance? Is it
So the maintenance is, there is scheduled maintenance, and then, of course, maintenance on demand. And then I believe it's every 6 months. Mr. Paul Verlinsky is actually leading that effort as far as the Next Gen 911 project. So if I'd like to defer for your specific question.
Morning, Senators. So the RFP was for the design, build, maintenance, and service of the new NG 911 system. As far as the maintenance concerns, it's a maintenance as needed. However, they're going to be able to service it whenever any updates that come up. It's no cost for the fire department. It's all inclusive of that RFP.
Okay, that's great. So then, when you have an on-demand maintenance or a scheduled maintenance, and the system goes down, is there a backup system that they have for you to utilize during that system maintenance?
Yeah, yes, sir. So with the RFP, we have a total of 8 workstations with 2 supervisors, and with the additional 4, what we call is a to-go kit. So we're able to take our to-go kit and go to our colo or our COOP site, open it up there, and have 911 at our COOP site.
So we do have several redundancies in this particular system. So we have the ability to, in the event anything is compromised at the primary location, we have the ability to COOP or continuity of operations at a separate location to not have that any lapse in service.
And then also, does the system have the capability of pinpointing locations when an individual uses a telephone or?
Yes, sir.
So the system will have the capability, but once the telco providers also meet that request, that capability will absolutely exist.
And then also the capability of the hard of hearing and text.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for the question. Yes. So I'm sure Senator Teddy will be happy about that one.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, we'll have the ability to talk to text, RTT, real-time texting.
Yeah, text to 911.
Oh, great.
Yeah, very exciting times for that one, Senator.
Yeah, I'm excited for it to get online as well. So thank you guys, Mr. Chair. That's the only questions I have. But thank you guys
Senator.
very much for your presentation this morning.
All right, Chief. As Senator Tello brought up about the 911, the dollar bill, I don't know, but for me, if they tell me pay $1 for 911, I pay $1. I expect that dollar to go to 911. So
Yes,
my
sir.
office will be looking at that because don't bill me $1 and take 15 cents of my dollar to pay for administrative costs. Okay, I'm not in support of that. I expected every penny to go to 911. And I'm going to close it up, but I'd like to first, number one, thank the fire department, because I don't know how many other senators ran into where I had a fire at my house, and you're worried about that, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Car burned, lost 2 cars, got into the house. The fireman, the chief, or the captain that showed up, outstanding. He knew he knew where to go. He knew where fire hydrants work, and your folks out there are doing a great job.
Thank you,
I mean,
sir.
I've seen them in action, separate from my house, but on the road. And I got to give them, credit that they know what they're doing. I think the people of Guam need to just remind themselves was when the fire trucks got their lights on, pull over. You don't need to think. Pull over.
Yes,
Let
sir.
them get by, because one day you may be a victim that needs their opportunity to respond timely. And that's the key. But other than that, thank you, and for your folks, we will be talking about that 911 very soon. And with that, the committee will conclude this budget hearing. The committee will continue to receive testimonies. Please address your written testimony to the Committee on General Government Operations, Appropriate Housing, and submit it via email to Senator Joe S. Agustin at gmail.com, or to my office located at Rand Care Building, 2nd floor, Suite 3, 761 South Marine Corps Drive, Tumuning, Guam. Sizus Masi for your attendance and participation in today's hearing, Chief, and your folks. And for those at home, thank you for watching. This budget hearing on Bill 276-36 COR relative to the Guam Fire Department is now adjourned. It is now 10:24, and please be safe and take care. Thank you.